My girlfriend sent, crashing at my ex's place tonight. Figure it out. I said, all right. Then I boxed her stuff and placed them by his doorway. Her access code failed when she attempted returning the following day. I'd been with Victoria for 18 months, living together in my downtown loft for the past 8. She was this stunning art gallery curator with expensive tastes and a habit of treating my place like her personal storage unit while contributing exactly zero toward rent or utilities. The text came at 9:47 p.m. on a Wednesday while I was debugging code for a client deadline. No explanation, no discussion, just a casual dismissal like I was some roommate she barely tolerated. I stared at the message for maybe 30 seconds, then typed back a simple, all right, and got to work. I spent the next 4 hours methodically packing every single item Victoria had accumulated in my space over the past 8 months. Her extensive collection of vintage band t-shirts went into labeled boxes. The art supplies she'd scattered across my dining table got carefully sorted into her original containers. I even packed her ridiculous collection of 12 different face masks and that expensive silk pillowcase she claimed was essential for her skin routine. The most tedious part was dealing with her orchid collection, 7 plants she'd insisted needed specific placement near my floor-to-ceiling windows. I wrapped each pot in protective plastic and loaded them into my car along with everything else. By 2 a.m., I was driving across the city to Luke's upscale apartment complex, the same building she'd mentioned visiting for art discussions way too frequently over the past month. I arranged everything neatly outside the penthouse door, boxes stacked professionally, hanging clothes in garment bags, even her yoga mat rolled and secured with her own hair tie. The orchids got prime placement where they'd be visible immediately when the door opened. I took photos of the neat arrangement, then drove home and did something I'd been considering for weeks anyway. I upgraded my smart lock system and changed all the access codes. I spent the remaining hour before dawn researching tenant rights and eviction procedures, just to make sure I was legally covered. Victoria had never signed a lease, never paid rent, never even bought groceries without using my card. Technically, she was a long-term house guest, not a tenant. When my alarm went off at 7 a.m., I felt more rested than I had in months. I made coffee without having to navigate around her cluttered morning routine, ate breakfast at my own table instead of the couch, and actually enjoyed the quiet. Around 10:30, my phone started buzzing with increasingly frantic calls and texts. First confusion, why won't my key code work? Then anger, what did you do to the lock? Finally desperation, Jake, please, all my stuff is gone and I can't get in. I was in a client meeting when she started calling repeatedly, so I let them all go to voicemail. When I finally listened to her messages during lunch, the progression was almost comical. Message 1 was annoyed but confident. Clearly she expected this to be some temporary glitch she could boss me into fixing immediately. By message 7, she was crying and admitting she'd made a mistake, but still demanding I let her back in to collect her things. I texted back once, your belongings are with Luke. You chose where you wanted to be. That evening, I ordered Thai food from her favorite restaurant, the one she'd always insisted was too spicy for me, and ate it while watching Netflix on the couch without anyone complaining about my show choices or demanding we watch another documentary about abstract expressionism. Friday morning, I was sipping coffee in my peaceful loft when someone started pounding on my door like they were trying to break it down. I opened it to find Victoria's father Gregory, this imposing guy in a $1,000 suit who'd always treated me like I wasn't quite good enough for his precious daughter. Behind him stood some lawyer type clutching a briefcase and looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. Tyler, Gregory announced without any greeting, you have exactly 1 hour to reinstate my daughter's access to this apartment and return her belongings, or we're filing wrongful eviction charges. I invited them in and calmly walked to my desk where I'd already prepared a folder of documentation. Lease agreement with my name only, utility bills going back 18 months, bank statements showing I'd paid every single expense. Victoria never paid rent, I explained, showing them the papers. She contributed maybe $200 monthly toward groceries, and that stopped 3 months ago. Legally, she was a house guest. The lawyer reviewed everything while Gregory's face got progressively redder. This is ridiculous, Tyler. Victoria lived here for 8 months. She has rights. She had the right to discuss problems instead of disappearing to her ex-boyfriend's apartment, I replied. But she chose differently. While they were threatening legal action in my living room, Victoria was apparently launching her own campaign on social media. My phone started lighting up with friends sending me screenshots of her Instagram posts. She'd crafted this whole victim narrative about being suddenly homeless due to an abusive partner's controlling behavior, complete with carefully cropped photos that made her look devastated and helpless. The posts were getting dozens of sympathetic comments from people who didn't know the real story. My heart goes out to you, girl. Men who use housing as manipulation are the worst. Stay strong, but you deserve so much better than someone who'd kick you out over nothing. She'd even posted a photo of herself sitting in her car with the caption, "When you realize the person you loved never actually cared about you. Sleeping in my car tonight because some people have no compassion." But Victoria's social media strategy backfired spectacularly within hours. Turns out Luke's current girlfriend Amber had seen the posts, and she was not having any of it. Amber posted a public response with photos of Victoria's belongings stacked outside their apartment door. "Interesting story, Victoria. Except you showed up at my boyfriend's place uninvited with all your stuff, demanding he choose between us. Luke told you to leave, which is why you're homeless. Stop lying about your ex and take responsibility for your own choices." The comments section exploded. People who'd initially supported Victoria started asking questions. "Wait, so you went to your ex's place first? This doesn't add up. Why would you go to Luke's if Tyler kicked you out?" Victoria tried damage control by claiming she'd only gone to Luke for emotional support as a friend, but Amber wasn't done. She posted security footage from their building's lobby showing Victoria screaming at her, calling her names, and demanding Luke kick Amber out so Victoria could move back in. Does this look like someone seeking friendly emotional support? Amber captioned the video. By Saturday evening, Victoria had deleted most of her posts, but the screenshots were already circulating. Several mutual friends reached out to me privately, apologizing for initially believing her story and admitting they'd always suspected she was manipulative but hadn't wanted to get involved. Gregory and his lawyer left my apartment empty-handed, but not before Gregory muttered something about not understanding young people today and how his daughter never used to be like this. The lawyer looked embarrassed and actually apologized to me on his way out. "I advised against this approach," he said quietly. "Your documentation is solid. She has no legal standing here." That weekend, I finally got to use my loft the way I'd always wanted. I set up a proper home office in the space that used to be cluttered with Victoria's art supplies, hung my own artwork on walls that had been covered with her inspiration boards, and invited friends over without worrying about someone sulking in the corner because the conversation wasn't revolving around her latest gallery drama. Monday morning brought a call from my property management company that I definitely wasn't expecting. "Mr. Harrison, we received a concerning report about your mental state," the representative said carefully. "A Victoria Chen contacted us claiming you're having some kind of breakdown and might pose a danger to yourself and other residents in the building." I almost laughed. "Let me guess, she suggested you do a welfare check or maybe revoke my lease for everyone's safety?" "How did you know?" "Because Victoria is my ex-girlfriend who's been escalating her harassment since I locked her out for abandoning our relationship. I can provide documentation of everything if needed." 2 hours later, I had police officers at my door conducting the welfare check Victoria had requested. I cooperated completely, showed them around my clean, organized apartment, provided the text message thread starting with her "figure it out" message, and gave them contact information for neighbors who could confirm I'd never been violent or disruptive. The officers were professional but clearly annoyed at having their time wasted. "Sir, you seem perfectly fine to us. We'll note in our report that this appears to be a domestic dispute being misrepresented as a mental health crisis." Victoria had also filed a formal domestic violence report, claiming I'd thrown her belongings into the street and changed the locks to trap her outside in dangerous conditions. The investigating detective was thorough, interviewing my neighbors and reviewing security footage from my building that clearly showed me calmly loading boxes into my car at 2 a.m., not violently throwing anything. Mr. Harrison, I've seen actual domestic violence cases, and this isn't one, Detective Martinez told me after reviewing everything. This looks like someone trying to weaponize the system against you. We'll be noting that in our report as well. Wednesday afternoon, I was grabbed at my usual coffee shop by someone I barely recognized, Miranda, Victoria's college friend who I'd met maybe twice at parties. She looked exhausted and furious. "Tyler, you need to fix this situation with Victoria right now," she demanded, dropping into the chair across from me without invitation. "She's been sleeping in her car for 4 days because no one else wants to deal with her drama." "That sounds like a Victoria problem," I said, continuing to work on my laptop. "She made her choice when she decided to crash at Luke's place. She's homeless, Tyler. She lost her apartment when she moved in with you, and now she has nowhere to go. How can you just sit there acting like this is normal?" I looked at Miranda directly for the first time. She chose to leave our relationship via text message to spend the night with her ex-boyfriend. She never asked to discuss problems, never suggested we work on anything. She just announced she was done with me and expected me to wait around until she decided whether Luke was a better option. Miranda's face changed as she processed this. That's not what she told me. She said you kicked her out during a fight over money. She's been telling a lot of stories that don't match reality. Ask Luke and Amber how Victoria's visit to their place actually went. The situation escalated beyond uncomfortable conversations when Victoria started following my daily routine. She'd show up at my gym during my regular workout times, sitting in the parking lot in her car and staring at me through the windows. She appeared at my office building during lunch hours, trying to intercept me on the sidewalk for just 5 minutes to talk. The restaurant where I met clients for dinner meetings became off-limits when she started showing up there, causing scenes by approaching my table and demanding to discuss our situation in front of professional contacts. My favorite weekend hiking trail became her new stakeout location. I'd arrived to find her car already there, and she'd, coincidentally, appear on the same path, trying to force conversations while I was trying to exercise and clear my head. "This is crazy, Victoria," I told her during one of these encounters. "You're literally stalking me now." "I'm trying to save our relationship," she replied, like this behavior was perfectly reasonable. "You won't answer my calls or texts, so I have to find other ways to reach you. There's no relationship to save. You ended it when you chose Luke over me." "I never chose Luke over you. I made a mistake, and I'm trying to fix it." "By sleeping in parking lots and following me around the city?" Her behavior was becoming genuinely unsettling. She knew my schedule better than I did, appearing at locations where I hadn't even posted about being. My coworkers started commenting on the blonde woman who kept showing up outside our building. My gym actually asked if I wanted them to ban someone who'd been loitering in the parking area and making other members uncomfortable. Victoria's harassment crossed into criminal territory on a Thursday when I got an alert from my credit monitoring service about suspicious activity. Someone had tried to access my Bank of America account using my social security number and personal information that only someone very close to me would know. The failed login attempts had triggered security protocols, but the damage was already starting. I discovered she'd successfully opened 3 credit cards in my name over the past week, having them shipped to different addresses including Miranda's apartment. The charges were already piling up: $800 at Nordstrom, $600 at Sephora, $1,200 at some boutique art supply store, and another $900 on what looked like hotel stays and restaurant bills. She'd memorized my social security number, mother's maiden name, and even the answers to my security questions during our 18 months together. Information I'd trusted her with like any normal partner, never imagining she'd weaponize it later. I immediately froze all my accounts and spent 6 hours on the phone with fraud departments, filing police reports and documenting every unauthorized transaction. The bank's security specialist was shocked by the scope of the identity theft. "Sir, this person had access to an unusual amount of your personal information. This looks like domestic-related financial fraud, which we take very seriously." Friday morning brought a call from my boss, David, that made my stomach drop. "Tyler, I need to see you in my office immediately." We've received some serious allegations about your conduct and potential financial irregularities. I walked into his office to find him holding printed emails and what looked like bank statements. Someone contacted our HR department claiming you've been embezzling client funds to support a gambling addiction. They provided what appears to be documentation of suspicious transfers and large cash withdrawals. My heart was pounding, but I kept my voice steady. David, who made these allegations? Someone claiming to be a concerned friend who discovered your activities. They said you've been desperate for money lately and might be using client accounts to cover personal debts. I pulled out my phone and showed him the fraud alerts and police reports I'd filed. Victoria, my ex-girlfriend, has been systematically stealing my identity and opening credit accounts in my name. She's now apparently trying to destroy my career because I won't take her back. David's expression shifted from concern to anger as he reviewed the evidence. Tyler, I've worked with you for 3 years. I know your character, and these allegations never made sense to me. But we had to investigate when someone provided what looked like financial documentation. The documentation is probably fabricated, just like the credit card she opened in my name. He spent an hour reviewing my actual financial records, client account access logs, and the timeline of Victoria's harassment campaign. Tyler, I'm sorry you had to go through this meeting, but I had to be thorough. It's clear these allegations are completely false. We'll be noting in your file that this was an attempted character assassination by a disgruntled ex-partner. Can we pursue this legally? Absolutely. Attempting to interfere with someone's employment through false accusations is a serious crime. I'll provide whatever documentation you need for your attorney. The bank called that afternoon with more bad news. Victoria had attempted to wire transfer $3,000 from my checking account to an account she'd opened at a different bank using my stolen identity. The transfer was blocked by security protocols, but the attempt was automatically reported to law enforcement as suspected fraud. Detective Martinez called me directly. Mr. Harrison, we've been tracking this escalating pattern of harassment from your ex-girlfriend. The identity theft and employment interference charges are felonies. We're preparing to make an arrest, but we need you to document any additional incidents. That weekend, Victoria made her biggest mistake yet. She somehow got into my apartment building, probably by following another resident through the security door, and left a handwritten note under my door. The note was a bizarre mix of love confession and threats. Tyler, I know you still love me. I've sacrificed everything trying to get back to you. If you don't respond to this message, I'll have no choice but to take more serious action. You're ruining both our lives by being stubborn. I'll be waiting in the parking garage at 10 p.m. tonight. Don't make me do something we'll both regret. I immediately called Detective Martinez and handed over the note. This is perfect evidence, he said. She's now making implied threats in writing. We have everything we need for arrest warrants on multiple charges: identity theft, credit fraud, stalking, filing false police reports, and now criminal intimidation. Monday morning, I hired Isabella Chin, a prominent attorney who specialized in harassment and cybercrime cases. Her office walls were covered with certificates and news articles about high-profile cases she'd won against stalkers and cybercriminals. Tyler, I've reviewed the documentation you provided, and this is one of the most comprehensive harassment campaigns I've seen, Isabella said during our first meeting. Victoria has systematically attacked every aspect of your life, personal, financial, and professional. We're going to pursue maximum penalties. Isabella's investigation uncovered things I hadn't even discovered yet. Victoria had been contacting my clients directly, sending anonymous emails claiming I was unstable and unreliable, and suggesting they find new financial advisors before I did something that affected their investments. She'd created fake social media accounts to leave negative reviews on my company's business pages, claiming I'd mishandled her family's retirement funds, and warning others to stay away from Tyler Harrison. The digital forensics team found deleted posts from her real accounts that contradict everything she told police and her family, Isabella explained. She actually bragged to friends about making Tyler pay for embarrassing her and teaching him what happens when you disrespect her. The investigation revealed Victoria had been using her position at the prestigious Meridian Gallery to research my professional network. She'd accessed client information through Art World connections, used gallery resources to print fake documents for her false police reports, and even missed work to conduct surveillance at my office building. Her employer, Margaret Whitfield, contacted me personally after discovering the scope of Victoria's activities. "Mr. Harrison, I want to apologize on behalf of Meridian Gallery. We had no idea Victoria was using our facilities and connections to harass you. She's been terminated immediately, and we're cooperating fully with law enforcement." Margaret revealed that Victoria had been lying about client meetings to justify her absences, had used gallery computers to create fake financial documents, and had even stolen letterhead to forge official-looking correspondence for her harassment campaign. "We trusted her completely, which she exploited to hurt you. This behavior is absolutely inexcusable." The background check Isabella ordered uncovered Victoria's history that I'd never known about. She had a sealed juvenile record for stalking a high school boyfriend, including vandalizing his car and threatening his new girlfriend. In college, she'd been placed on academic probation twice for interpersonal conflicts that involved harassing professors who gave her poor grades. There was even a restraining order filed by her previous boyfriend before me, though charges were dropped when he moved to another state. "Tyler, this woman has a documented pattern of escalating harassment when relationships end," Isabella explained. The juvenile record shows she slashed her high school boyfriend's tires and spray-painted "cheater" on his parents' driveway. The college incidents involved her following professors to their cars and showing up at their homes uninvited. Isabella filed for emergency restraining orders while building the criminal case. "We're pursuing charges for identity theft, credit fraud, stalking, filing false police reports, attempted interference with employment, criminal intimidation, and cybercrime. The financial damages alone exceed $8,000, and the attempted career sabotage makes this a serious felony case." The restraining order hearing was scheduled for the following week, but Victoria violated it before the ink was dry. She showed up at my apartment building again, this time trying to convince the doorman that she was my fiancé who'd been locked out during a lover's quarrel. Security footage showed her becoming increasingly agitated when the doorman refused to let her up, finally screaming that I was a dangerous psychopath who needed to be stopped. Detective Martinez arrested her in the lobby. "Ms. Chen, you're under arrest for violation of a restraining order, trespassing, and continued harassment. You have the right to remain silent." As they led her away in handcuffs, she was still screaming about how I'd ruined her life and stolen everything from her. The building's other residents got quite a show, and several offered to testify about her previous stalking incidents they'd witnessed but hadn't reported. The criminal trial proceeded faster than I'd expected, thanks to the overwhelming digital evidence Isabella's team had compiled. Forensic specialists recovered deleted social media posts where Victoria had bragged about destroying Tyler's pathetic life, and detailed screenshots of fake documents she'd created to submit false reports to police and my employer. The financial records were ironclad: every fraudulent credit card application, every unauthorized purchase, every attempt to access my accounts was time-stamped and documented by the bank's security systems. Victoria's defense attorney, a tired-looking public defender named Roberts, attempted to argue temporary insanity caused by the emotional trauma of sudden homelessness. "Your Honor, my client was devastated by being unexpectedly evicted from her home of 8 months. The stress of sleeping in her car led to poor decision-making and actions she deeply regrets." Isabella demolished this defense systematically. "Your Honor, the defendant wasn't evicted. She voluntarily abandoned the relationship via text message to spend the night with her ex-boyfriend. The evidence shows premeditated criminal behavior spanning several weeks, not impulsive acts of desperation." The prosecution presented a timeline that was damning. Victoria had begun researching identity theft procedures online 2 days after I changed the locks. She'd systematically gathered my personal information over the following week, then executed the credit card fraud over several days while simultaneously filing false police reports and attempting to sabotage my employment. This wasn't desperate behavior, Your Honor. This was calculated revenge designed to destroy every aspect of the victim's life. The key witnesses were devastating for Victoria's case. Luke took the stand and testified about Victoria arriving at his apartment uninvited with all her possessions, demanding he choose between her and Amber. She said Tyler had kicked her out, but when I asked why, she admitted she'd told him she was spending the night at my place and expected him to just accept it. When I refused to let her move in, she became extremely aggressive toward my girlfriend. Amber's testimony was even more damaging. Victoria called me horrible names and threatened to make me pay for interfering with her life. She said if she couldn't have Luke, she'd make sure Tyler suffered for humiliating her. She specifically said she was going to ruin him financially and professionally because he needed to learn his place. Detective Martinez presented the evidence methodically: the false police reports Victoria had filed, the fabricated financial documents she'd submitted to my employer, the threatening note she'd left at my apartment, and the security footage of her repeated violations of the restraining order. The defendant engaged in a systematic campaign of harassment designed to destroy the victim's reputation, financial security, and professional standing. The judge reviewed Victoria's escalating pattern of behavior, her history of similar conduct with previous partners, and the scope of the financial and emotional damage she'd caused. Ms. Chin, your actions represent a deliberate and sustained attack on Mr. Harrison's life and livelihood. You violated his privacy, stole his identity, filed false reports with law enforcement, attempted to destroy his career, and continued this behavior even after being legally ordered to stop. Victoria's sentencing was comprehensive. 2 years in county jail for the felony charges, 5 years probation upon release, mandatory psychiatric evaluation and anger management classes, complete financial restitution for all damages including my legal fees, and a permanent restraining order prohibiting any direct or indirect contact with me for the next 10 years. The judge was particularly stern about the employment interference charges. Attempting to destroy someone's professional reputation through false accusations is a serious crime that undermines public trust in our institutions. The sentence reflects the gravity of these actions. As Victoria was led away to begin serving her sentence, she finally broke down completely. Gone was the manipulative confidence she'd maintained throughout the harassment campaign. "Tyler, please," she called out as the bailiff escorted her from the courtroom. "I never meant for it to go this far. I just wanted you to care about losing me." I didn't respond. Isabella had advised me to avoid any reaction that could be construed as engagement, but honestly, I felt nothing but relief that this nightmare was finally over. Victoria's conviction became public record within days, effectively ending her career in the art world where reputation and personal integrity are everything when dealing with high-end clients and million-dollar collections. Word traveled fast through the gallery circuit. Margaret from Meridian called to tell me that several other galleries had already contacted her asking about Victoria's background after seeing the news coverage. "The art community is smaller than people realize," Margaret explained. "When someone commits crimes like identity theft and harassment, that information spreads quickly. Victoria will never work in prestigious galleries again." 2 weeks after sentencing, Isabella received a call from Gregory's attorney requesting a private meeting. Gregory wanted to settle all remaining financial damages and legal fees without admitting any personal liability for his daughter's actions. "Mr. Harrison, I want you to know that my client deeply regrets his daughter's behavior and the impact on your life," the attorney explained during our meeting. "He's prepared to cover all your legal costs, credit monitoring services, and additional compensation for the emotional distress this situation caused." The settlement was substantial, enough to cover Isabella's fees, all the financial damages, plus a significant amount for the months of harassment and professional disruption I'd endured. Gregory included a brief personal letter expressing genuine remorse and requesting that our families have no further contact, which was exactly what I wanted anyway. I used part of the settlement money to upgrade my loft's security system with state-of-the-art cameras and access controls, then took my first real vacation in 2 years. 3 weeks in Costa Rica, hiking through national parks and not checking my phone every 5 minutes for harassment messages. The peace and quiet were incredible after months of constantly looking over my shoulder. When I returned, I felt like myself again for the first time since this nightmare started. Reflecting on the entire experience, I realized I'd ignored obvious red flags during our relationship that seemed minor at the time but were actually warnings about Victoria's character. She'd always had this entitled attitude where problems were everyone else's fault and solutions were everyone else's responsibility. When she didn't get her way, she'd manipulate situations and people until she did, or punish those who wouldn't cooperate. The way she treated service workers, her dismissive attitude toward my friends who didn't serve her interests, her expectation that I should fund her lifestyle while she contributed nothing meaningful, all signs of someone who saw other people as resources to be exploited rather than individuals deserving respect. Her "figure it out" text message, which had seemed so casually cruel at the time, was actually the perfect catalyst that revealed her true nature before I'd gotten in any deeper. If she'd been more subtle about ending things, I might have tried to work things out and ended up legally entangled with someone capable of systematic criminal behavior. Instead, her arrogance and sense of entitlement led her to show her hand completely, giving me the clarity I needed to protect myself from someone who turned out to be genuinely dangerous. Sometimes the worst thing that happens to you turns out to be the best thing that could have happened, because it saves you from something much worse down the road.